open zoning in Henderson County. And that meant you could put about any structure, any place, including an asphalt plant, about anywhere you wanted to. The reason there was zone called open zoning, is that just no zoning, which is the same thing, was a way for the county to get grants because the state required zoning. And I could talk about that for half an hour, another hour. You don't have to.
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll move on to question 5, the background. Most Henderson County residents don't really understand how our government works. They have limited time and access to information about decisions being made and are often not aware of issues affecting them until it's too late to have meaningful input. This may be especially true in the unincorporated communities like Etowah, who do not have direct representation in various departments or on advisory committees. The question: what kind of organization structures would you support to involve unincorporated communities in decision-making when their input can still make a difference? And we'll go first to Mr. Appleby.
Well, all my meetings will be open to the public, and I plan to tell my community how we can all be better informed. And I will do one thing they promise and never do. I will listen and not cut off their free speech. And I will give consideration to all sides and give direct answers.
Is that it?
Well, just a little brief background. In going through all the city council meetings, they restricted my speech to 60 seconds. And I think if you're going to be a city official, you should be required by your own laws to listen to people at least for 2 minutes. You know, how can anyone gain any type of perspective from somebody in 60 seconds? I don't know.
You got 43 seconds left.
Oh, wow. Well, I can tell you I love my wife, and I wish she was here because she's the one that is the filibuster. I love cooking. I'm a licensed ginseng dealer. I make homemade wine, and I'm an avid skier, and I hope to see you on the slopes at Sugar Mountain on Thursday. Plan to be over there then.
That'll do it. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Orr.
Well, to that question, I think, the county has we have plenty of advisory committees on subject matters, and I think we need to have a district advisory committee for every district within the county. And I think each district commissioner should be required to sit on that advisory committee to hear what's going on. Because you have places like the unincorporated areas of, that have a Mills River address but aren't in the Mills River town, or like Etowah, places like that, where decisions are being made that are big decisions about your area and what's happening, and a lot of times you don't know about it until the vote is already over. You hear about it in the newspaper, you see it online or wherever it may be. I think we need to increase our public advertising when there is a big vote like that and a big decision being made, to make sure the citizens of that area are aware that that is happening. And I think we need to hold more hearings and roundtables on decisions being made, just like you see us doing right here tonight for a campaign. It's something important to us, it's something important to you, and if it's important enough, we need to be holding more hearings where people can make their voice heard and tell us what they think about an issue in their area. And going back to what I've said several times tonight is, if I get elected, any of us here, it's our job to serve the people. It's not our job to serve us. So we need to make sure it's a priority that we have heard the people's opinion and we have heard the concerns before we make a vote on a critical matter.
Okay. Ms. McCall, you are next.
When I worked for corporate America, one of my jobs was Six Sigma Black Belt. If you don't know what that is, Six Sigma is a quality assurance program, and if you are certified through this training, then you are called a black belt. And I was a black belt, and I led many kaizens, which is a group of people coming together to solve a problem. And 9 times out of 10, the root cause of the problem was communication. And that continues to be a problem. And even today, in local government, communication is a problem. People don't read the newspaper anymore. They hardly watch the news. And guess what? WLOS doesn't care what goes on in Henderson County. Very few people listen to the radio, and the radio, they do their best, but they don't get it right all the time. Hendersonville Lightning is, the editor of that has moved away, and it's starting to decline. That is really our only local paper. I used to get up every morning, get the newspaper, the Times News, sit down, read it, have my coffee, and then get ready for work. I don't do that anymore because the paper's so thin and there's nothing in it except for what's in USA Today. So we continue to strive to improve communication. We do have the small group, historically have had the small groups in different areas. And we've walked away some from that, just with all that's been going on since the comprehensive plan. But I agree, we need to do some more district type groups. If people will come out, because you see who's here tonight. So.
Thank you. And Mr. Wyatt.
Well, I have 2 degrees in public policy, and I don't think anything that either of those degrees I went through have taught me nearly what my experience in 4 decades of public service has been. It's about people, it's about individuals, and it's about communities. We are absolutely here to serve. How do we serve best? It's been alluded to here. First thing you do is you've got to listen. You also have to build partnerships. You have to build partnerships with your members of your community. How do you do that? You get out in the community. I said in the beginning that decisions that are specific, like for this instance, the sewer issue, that are specific to Etowah don't need to be made in Hendersonville. They need to be made out here. They need to be made face to face with the people who are going to reap the benefits or pay the bills from here on out. That is something we can't do enough of. Your government is here to serve you. Absolutely. It needs to come to you in a way that is, again, respectful and seeking your perspective, because the government belongs to you. It's not about us. This is a representative democracy. Thank God we have a representative democracy, and we are to represent your best interests. Thank you.
Okay. That's the end of the standard questions. Now we're opening it up to the floor for questions. We have a little more time than we thought we would, but we're going to still stick with a couple basic rules. We'll give you a minute to, if we're going to come up to the microphone if you have a question. You'll have a minute to present your question to an individual candidate. I guess we could go to 2 candidates at this point. Okay? And you'll get a signal to wrap up like you've been hearing. Then the candidate has 2 minutes to respond, and I'll give you signals. This is not an opportunity for debates. This is a question and answer, and we aim to wrap this portion up by 7:50 at the latest. If we run out of questions before that, that'll be just dandy. So, microphone is open. Who would like to come first? Somebody I know well. Mr. O'Connor, you have a minute to ask your question.
I'm David O'Connor, resident of Etowah, and I'd really like to know from Commissioner McCall and Mr. Orr, what do we do to put teeth into the land development code? Right now, the land development code is being reconstructed by a consultant, as I understand it. And how do we, the citizens of the areas that are going to be affected by the LDC, and you've seen that in the past with the excitement we had with the golf course, how do we put teeth into the LDC and keep the capabilities of the LDC to focus our efforts on true significant control of development? Commissioner McCall, if you go first, please.
Yes, there is a consultant. We've hired many consultants in the time that I've been on the board, and that's what they are, they're consultants. They don't have any power. They take the comprehensive plan that took 3 years for us to finalize, and they use that as a guideline, and they take the development code that we have now, and they formulate a new development code for us to start with. Everything has to have a starting point. That is then turned over to the planning board. They go through it with a fine-tooth comb. I've been a part of the planning board. Representative Bachman has been on the planning board. A lot of work is done by those volunteers. They are volunteers. And then they turn the recommendations over to the commissioners. We go through it, we make changes, we send it back, they send it back to us. So the part that the consultant plays is just making the outline. But we have to start somewhere. And we do have limited control. We do. We can't make all those decisions because we are under the restriction of the guidelines of the state. So we depend on our representative and our senator to help us with that respect, and to help make changes where those changes can be made. We are under a huge restriction right now with downzoning, and hopefully that will get reversed.
Mr. Orr, same question.
Well, Commissioner McCall hit on most of what I would like to say. You know, these consultants they're an advisor role, so they're not the ones making the final decision. But when you have something like that going on, I think that's where you go back to kind of what we discussed here with these advisory committees, where you get it back in the hands of the people, where you do have an opportunity to listen to what the people want. Like you said, you know, you have the issue right now where you can't down zone, but when you're talking about changes being made, it's very important that you have public hearings and public comment from the people that it's affecting the most. And we need to make sure that we are providing the opportunity for those people to make it known on how it may affect them or what they as the citizens want.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the group? And this is Ray. Tell them who you are, Ray.
Okay, I'm Ray Kroll, live here in Etowah, and came from western New York, and I've been here a little over 6 years now. I'm really thankful for that. So, I think that, Mr. Wyatt, in the LDC, it's proposed now that, people, and you can correct me, if I'm wrong, but I think it's proposed that people can, without any problems, go ahead and fill 20% of their floodplain area. Somebody buys property, they can fill up to 20% without any difficulties. So let's say we, as citizens, disagree with that. I'm not really sure how to, you can't go to the planning board. I don't know, there's no advisory committee, or I don't know how we put, how we get our interest across. Is that clear? Yes.
Yeah, well, that actually is very clear. How do you get your interest across is you talk to her. And if I get elected, I'll come to your house and sit down, you run the coffee. I like mine heavily caffeinated, because my days are very long.
I'm texting you my address right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, I come, what about the week after next? Next week's really rough, but the week after next, seriously. And that's something I'll say to you too. There's a little confusion, I think, going on here about downzoning too. And Representative Bachman, I don't know if you want to address that, or if the group wants her to address that. But, there's some clarifications that I think can be made. But the bottom line is, it comes back to accountability. Are your elected officials going to be accountable to you? Now, listen, we may not agree. You're from Western New York, so there's going to be some opportunities for us to disagree, okay? but we ought to be able to sit
I
down.
disagree with that.
Okay, well, I agree with that. So, I think there has to be, I know there has to be. I've spent 40 years dealing with legislators, commissioners, city council people, and citizens that are hurting. I've been on the trips to give people really bad news, but I wanted to hear it from me. Because I can explain the why, I can explain the how. You may not like the answer, but I'll come down and sit down again. If you're buying the coffee, I'll be there.
Okay, so there was a suggestion that Ms. Balcom
If it pleases, if
pleases the court.
it pleases the court.
Pleases the court. We have some time. Let's take 3 minutes, 5 minutes.
Do you want me to come to the playground?
Everybody will hear better now, right?
So the good part is, if someone asked about your voice, those surveys from the 2045 plan, we use those to make your 2045 plan. So the commissioners, when you want a voice, you fill out those surveys. It was the most amount of surveys filled out in this county ever. It was the most percentage. And that's what they used to make the 2045 plan. I was part of that plan before I took office. And Rebecca was on the planning board at the time. She did an excellent job of being on the planning board and protecting whatever you said. It has to go back to the commissioners, and like she said, sometimes you don't always get the vote of those commissioners, but she did an excellent job, I will say. I served with her in that, and she did a great job. The other thing with downzoning, the county and the city can downzone. They just have to have your permission to do so. If you want to downzone, you can go to the county, you sign a piece of paper, and a downzone. The county can still downzone, they just need your permission to do it on your property. It's your property rights before we go as a government taking things away or putting things in a different, they just need your permission. So yes, the county can still downzone, Mills River can still downzone, you can downzone. You just have to get the property owner's permission.
But everybody, if we want to do an area that's in the comprehensive plan and laid out, everybody in that area has to agree to it.
Yes,
100%,
yes,
unlike.
yes, that particular property, yes.
What's the probability that would happen?
It's happening currently. So there has been a group in the city that's actually wanted to downzone, they signed, and it's being done. So it can be done. It makes it a little harder, you have to do a little extra work, but it can be done.
So it's like a voluntary process rather than a forced process.
Yes.
Yes.
But we can't just look at a map and say that area is gonna be this, where it once was that.
And what that does too is it guarantees your participation.
Yeah, because you have a voice.
Yeah, you
Your
can
property.
vote, actually, is the way
Yeah.
to look at it. You
Yeah.
can vote on your property. So it's a way to push government decision making down to the people.
Give it back to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the group? Okay.
First of all, thanks a lot for coming out tonight, and wish we could have a bigger crowd, but we're dedicated. And fairly simple question, 2 parts. The acoustic trail is going to be making its way down here, and am I addressing any particular members of the?
You choose.
Okay. I'll take the 2 on the end. And it's a 2-part question. First question is, what do you see as some of the problems or obstacles being presented by the completion of the Etowah Trail through, or the acoustic trail through Etowah? And what do you see as the benefits and opportunities presented by the completion of the trail? And that's it. Thanks.
Which two?
How about, are you ready to
Yep.
answer, Mr.
Well,
Ward?
I think the acoustic trail is a great thing for our area. I think it's a great, it's a great repurpose of the old railway, and I think that it's, I'm personally excited about it. I do see where it can have some issues, with what we're seeing right now with some of the parking problems and things like that going on. You've got people taking, down here at the Horseshoe Post Office, you have people that are parking there where folks who need to use the post office can't. And they're putting up signs and signs aren't working, and they're working on enforcement issues and things like that. So I see that as one of the main issues, and it's gonna bring, everything's gonna bring a problem here and there, and I see that as probably the biggest issue. The pros I see about the acoustic trails, I think it is, like I said, it's a great repurpose of the old railroad, but I think it's a great place that encourages exercise for our citizens, but it's also a great place when, you have tourists coming here. It's a great way for them to get out and discover our area and find other businesses and things like that where they can spend their money and benefit our local economy. And you'll have things, whether it's a 5K or a race or whatever it may be, that's also going to bring in more people, which all, in return helps our economy. And as a commissioner, if I'm elected, I want to see a healthy economy in Henderson County, and I think that is a great tool that is benefiting our economy.
Mr. White?
Gotta tell you the problems I've talked to the sheriff about with the acoustic trail. First one, it's litter. I don't know if you use the trail, you go on the trail, and it's great to walk there. You don't get run over by one of those e-bikes, those motorized bikes, you don't get run over by one of those. But that's an issue. Enforcement of the speed limit, I personally don't think there need to be motorized vehicles, on the acoustic trail. I think the acoustic trail is supposed to be a health and wellness thing. I'm all for recreation for everybody, but you can't fit everything in everybody. There needs to be a greater respect for personal property, private property. I've had complaints, nothing I can do about it, but I can talk to the sheriff, which I have. The trail is an attractive nuisance. Do you know that term, attractive nuisance? I mean, you take something great, and it is great, a lot of benefits. I can tell you some stories about how we got there and the reasons for that. But anything you do, somebody's going to find a way to turn it around, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. But it is an economic development driver, and it would be ways that you wouldn't imagine. So everybody knows about Sierra Nevada, right? The brewery down there. You don't know, you may or may not know the story about how Sierra Nevada landed here, but it was the connection we made with those folks out in Chico, California. We were competing with some major players to get Sierra to come here and invest probably now $300 million in just real property improvements. But one of the things these folks wanted that appealed to them, this new generation with money to invest, they wanted trails for biking, hiking, those kind of things. And talking with them, myself, and the vision for that trail was, wait a minute, that's really cool. And yeah, it is cool, but it's an opportunity. I don't drink beer, but I like Sierra Nevada because they're one of the best taxpayers in the county, and they put in a lot more to the county than they take out of the county. Back to the trail, people are soft, right? We don't exercise enough. It's an opportunity. And, if it encourages, and I know it does because I see young families in the safety of the trail that are not going to be out beside the road. I mean, and how many times have you had to dodge a biker? And I'm not talking about Jay and his Harley Davidson. I'm talking about, one of these bikers out here, and we have them? Okay, we have some, okay, all right. So, I mean, it's a safe place. So it's a great amenity, has a lot of benefits, but it's like anything else. It has to be managed properly and paid attention to, because it can have a downside.
Thank you. Any other questions from anyone else? Okay.
While he's coming, I'm gonna say that Ward is a biker, but he has trash cans on the side of his bike and picks up trash while he's biking, and he got an award for that.
What a good citizen.
Thank you, Ward. You know, I'm gonna partly use, my position prerogative and talk about a couple of things. You know, there are two of us in the whole county who regularly go to the planning board, just two of us. And one of the things I've learned is that we don't know what we don't even know. And the problem is, you know, you listen to some of the things that are said, things like this, but you know, geez, it's nothing's gonna come of this because they don't know something. And somehow or another, we've gotta, the things that we're trying to do, I'm trying to address some of that out here, and later on I'll show you before you wanna go, the newsletter. But almost every single planning board meeting, I learned something new. The other one, just the one that they held last week, for example, Commissioner Lashley explained how the fire districts work. And he mentioned the fact that they were independent corporations, they have their own board, they come up with their own, they take the property and they figure out what their own taxing is, they get the county to approve it, and that's the way they go about it. So, you know, a lot of people grouse when they get a letter from the fire districts and things like that, because they say, well, I've already paid it through the taxes and things like that. Well, they don't really, what I'm guessing is happening is that the county, they sent, either the county told them their tax rate couldn't be higher to fully cover all their costs or something like that, but somehow or other, the system didn't allow them to have all the money that they wanted to do, whatever, and things like that. That's my guess. But anyway, my point is, that's an example of something I didn't begin to understand, or know. And I could rattle off some more, we've got to find a way of educating the public. And it's got to, we can put, I agree with you about the newspapers and things like that, that the papers don't cover it, but we've got to give people an in-depth understanding of what's going on. Otherwise, and things are very complicated in those LDCs. I mean, well, we had some personal experience with this developer out here about how they were interpreting the open space. And so what Martha did and her husband did is they submitted a white paper to the county and said, hey, let's try to fix this, and it suggested how that open space should be redefined in the LDC. Now, we submitted it to the planning board. We're not going to know until we finally see the LDC whether that suggestion was taken or whatever. I believe we're going to have another opportunity to put it in. But we have, some of us have submitted white papers on things that we think should be changed in the LDC. One of them has to do with floodplain, the way that's treated. So my point there is that we really have to find a way that yes, we have advisory committees, but you know, we have one, for example, for Etowah sewer, but the point is, we've got to have a way of communicating what that advisory committee is learning and advising on, and how there's and how we can establish communication between the committee and the advisory committee. Otherwise, you get 5 people who are doing their own thing. The other thing I want to comment on, and I actually, Commissioner McCall, I'd like you to comment on this and maybe draw in Representative Falcon. As you know, when we learned that the legislature had taken that $12.2 million away from the county, and that was going to be used to put in the sewer system out there in the east part of the town. There was a huge amount of discussion, well, there's a lot of unhappiness going back and forth about the lack of communications between our state representative and our local representative. I guess, so this is my question. Are we moving to better improve that communication so that our
Well, and we've actually talked about this, and we've always had a good, relationship with our representatives, and, but sometimes life gets in the way, and sometimes things happen so quickly that decisions are made, and, communication might be forgotten. You know, things happen. We're human. But yes, it is our goal to continue to have positive and worthwhile communication back and forth with each other because, quite frankly, they are there to help us, and I hope that we are here to help them in some way. And at the end of the day, we all want what's best for Henderson County. But some of the decisions that are made they can't be localized. You know what I mean? I mean, if you're looking at you're looking at Etowah, and Etowah needs this and Etowah needs that, but the commissioners have to look at some of these regulations, and the state especially, as the whole county, or even the whole state, and what's best for the whole, and not necessarily what's best for one little section of it. And that's very difficult sometimes, to weigh the checks and balances and make sure that you are serving the whole population and not just the minimal few. And I do appreciate the fact that you did the white papers, and those are read. When the surveys were done for the comprehensive plan, I volunteered. There were some that were done manually and sent in, and those had to be input into the system. And I volunteered to input a lot of those so that I could read them and read the comments that people made and understand what the people wanted, because that's really why we're here. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, and I even accept the fact that when a law is drawn up, it's a compromise with other state representatives. In other words, to get what we want, we have to compromise. So we may not get, so I know that's all part of the issue and things like that. Another thing I'd like you folks to comment on, I mean, what happened, my understanding is what happened a year ago, when the bill was passed, somebody slipped in, pardon the expression, the no down zoning. And we didn't find out about it until it was done. What I wonder is, when the state legislature is bringing a bill up for vote, is there any chance at all that that could be provided to the county for review? And if, for example, we have an attorney that looks at these things carefully. I mean, and there are software things that would allow, and those bills go through various iterations, I'm sure. So there's extra wording, things like that. So why don't we get a copy of every iteration, so to speak, or whatever, or reasonable, and we do software checks to see where things like that have been inserted? Because I don't know whether you even knew that that had been inserted. Did you know that had been inserted?
I had, probably 3 hours before I had to vote on it.
Is that part of the problem then?
Yeah.
Yes. And they do monitor, because a lot of times they can monitor anything with Henderson County, anything with Amyville, anything with Etowah. So they monitor, it's out there as soon as it hits public. So they monitor it. They see something come in, I get a phone call. John Mitchell will call me, or John Connor will call me, or whoever it is. Hey, are you aware of this? That was a little tricky because it was 3 hours we went to vote. They didn't even have time to get me on the phone. So in that particular instance,
But it was posted somewhere, correct?
it is. It's posted automatically on the General Assembly once a bill is filed. It's automatic. You can put an email notification, the public can, anytime a certain committee. You can do it to committee, you can do it to the regular bill, you can do it to any of them, to watch anything coming out.
Well, I would think that it would be useful for the county for every one of those posts, because every one of those posts represents some changes, right?
Oh yes, that bill in particular was a Helene bill. It had over 46 pages
Well, I know.
in that bill. It was huge.
Yeah.
And so no fault to them. It was just a lot to take in that was good and bad.
Well, but that's my point. The point is, wouldn't it have been helpful to our county attorney if he had software, if he knew as soon as any bill gets posted, he somehow or another he knows it right off. And he would then use, if he could use software compare to see where the changes have been made. I mean,
Well, he pretty
It
much
does
does.
that.
He
It
does.
does that.
He
So
makes
it'll
us aware.
automatically find
Yeah.
it in a line and halt it to
The
show
problem
when it has
is-
that.
We can't change it.
no, I know.
It has to be changed on the state level, and like she said, there were a lot of good things in that bill, and that's part of the problem. The bill was too overloaded. If the bills had less in them,
It's much easier.
yes. But there were things that they had to pass in that bill, and that got snuck in at the last minute, and it was either we do it or we don't do it, and it made more sense to do it.
It was the only money set aside for farmers at that time of
Yeah.
$146 million. I could not, after all of those, there was no way I could.
The problem with not voting for the bill would have been worse than the problem with
Yes.
voting for the bill.
Okay. All right, whatever, you understand.
Yeah, I do, but we do monitor everything.
Okay. All right, well, I guess we gotta work at slowing things down so we get a chance to comment on it. So, I mean, the idea is somebody being able to put that in there when most people don't even know it's
Oh, and
happening.
we do comment.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Let me ask one question that is Henderson County, very, very Henderson County specific. Our taxes are very low. Now, Mr. Appleby has already made the comment that taxes should be lower. There are some of us who feel that taxes being increased a little bit would bring some significant benefits that are important to us. So, the other three of you, what's the chance that instead of being third lowest, we could raise our taxes a little bit and have some significant impacts on teacher pay, on environmental concerns? What's the chance of that? Let's start with Mr. Wyatt. We'll go
Okay.
down this way.
So we'll talk a little bit about that. Taxes are going up. If things go as they are planned, as I understand them, the county's debating, the commissioners, rightly so, debating $170 million worth of debt, new debt. Already committed to $70 million, I believe, Rebecca,
Yeah.
for the jail. There's a $100 million question, and it's 98.7. I'll round it off to $100 million.
Just for timing purposes, how about turning it into something that we relate to, like a rate?
That's, well, again, I don't have the information they do, but I do run my own numbers. You're looking at a significant tax increase, probably, but, and I say that, but there are other things out there too. To pay for this debt, you're looking at, probably, a debt service on an additional $100 million is what kind of rate are we looking at? Do you have any idea what kind of rate are?
I don't know
Okay.
yet, but 3 or lower.
I mean, is it gonna double?
Oh, no, your taxes aren't gonna double,
Of course.
and your millage, maybe 10%, I don't hold me to a figure, because again, I don't have that information. But to service that debt is going to be millions of new dollars that has to come into the budget. And that there's normal growth, right, in real estate property values, and that's calculated every year. It would appear to me that most, if not all, of that normal growth is going to be absorbed by that. So that's not going to leave a lot of money for other things. So what you said is going to have to be in 2027 is going to have to be the crux of the conversation. The new board of commissioners will be sworn in the 1st of December of 26. In 27, January 1 of 27, what happens? You got a new, you have a new revaluation. That's a revaluation year where everybody's property values are going to be notified. So knowing that, why are we doing this? Because you talk about feedback. When you get a property notice that says your property's gone up to double what you think it's worth, you're gonna call her, or one of the rest of us here. So, you know, the whole issue of taxes, there are some things that are worth paying taxes for. There's no question. And a tax increase, there's no question. I've got my own ideas about that, but I also say to you that if everything's a priority, then nothing's a priority. You have to prioritize what's in there. What's the number one funding priority of the county right now? Where does the most of the county's money the number one recipient of local tax money, what is that? It's the school system. $37 billion goes into the operation of the school system. Okay? How much of that's mandated? Not much. Those are optional funds. The county's responsibility for the facilities. We built, like in the 20 years I was here, 15 years I was here, we built Mills River School, we built Hillendale School, we built Hendersonville, we built Etowah, the Innovative High School. We did that on a graduated debt schedule. We brought that here, graduated debt schedule, but we managed that debt. It's doable if you manage it, but priorities are going to have to be set. I've got some priorities. Mr. Orr has alluded to some of them. I agree with him 100%. And that's our public safety, emergency services, law enforcement agent officers, sheriff's deputies, our first responders, a pay scale for them. That puts us not only competitive, but at the forefront to be able to hire the best and retain the best. That's going to be a huge challenge. Adjoining school systems pay a teacher supplement in the thousands of dollars. We're competing with them, right? The school supplements for the school teachers. Representative Balcom and I have been talking about different ways to incentivize emergency responders to help them stay in the profession and be able to pay their bills. So it's about making priorities. So, you know, yeah, there are things worth paying taxes for.
Ms. McCall?
Did you know that there's a group in Raleigh right now that's considering doing away with property tax? Well, guess what? The bills still have to be paid. When I first came on the commission, the budget was $150 million. And our tax rate was 56 cents. Right now, our budget is over 200 million, and our tax rate is 43 cents. Now, what happened in that time span? Revaluation. And on the average, property values went up 40%. That wasn't just in Henderson County, that was nationwide.
But Western North Carolina is a leader in property valuations going up.
Yeah. We do have another reval coming up starting next year, and I really shouldn't share this number, but the estimate that we think it's going to be is an average of 15 to 17% increase. So it's not going to hurt us bad. Will the property tax rate change? Probably not, because of the additional expenses that we have. Because guess what, we're growing, and as we grow, we have to expand our services, and those services are important. If we didn't have the property tax money, we'd have to double the sales tax, because we still have to be able to service or we could do away with the ambulances, we could do away with the sheriff's department, we could cut all of the supplemental additions for the school teachers, and reduce the number of schools that we have. We could do that.
But to be clear, you cannot double the sales tax. Yeah,
Right.
The county has no authority over the sales tax.
So, there we are.
Okay. Mr. Orr?
Well, I agree with what you said about, that if we increase taxes slightly and we get better services out of that, that is a true benefit. Being in the fire department, I've seen some situations where, after seeing some of those, you can ask my wife or anybody that's close to me, I'm a penny pincher. I don't like to spend any money. I don't wanna pay a dime more to taxes if I don't have to. But that being said, I've seen some scenarios and some situations where I would have paid any amount of tax to make sure that never happened to my family. And I sit on a few committees with our fire department, and I've watched how much the price of things have changed when you've got fire engines that were $250,000 a few years ago that are now $1.2 million for a fire truck is huge, especially when you don't just need one of them, you need lots of them. And, you know, the more people we move in here, the majority of people moving here aren't adding to our workforce, they're furthering the need for it. And, you know, I watched a sad situation happen the past few weeks where arguably the best firefighter in our county, we just lost him to the city of Charlotte. And this guy's so good that he travels all over the U.S. to train firemen specifically on how to find children in a blackout situation. And he's very good at it. We just lost him to the city of Charlotte for pay because he has a family to raise. He has to be able to provide for them. And if it took raising taxes slightly to be able to keep people like him and to be able to keep qualified teachers, being the penny pincher I am, I'm all for it.
Thank you. Okay,
Very simple question,
all right.
just so I'm clear. You're in District 3, Mr. Appleby?
District 4?
4.
3. So you two are running against each other?
No,
We're not running against each other, we're running for Henderson County.
right. And let me be clear, that's absolutely what that young man said. I believe he is offering to serve, I am offering to serve, we're on the same team.
I mean, so we'll vote for one.
But you have to make a decision.
Okay.
And my race is a contested race in the 4th District. I'm running against Mrs. McCall, and she's running against me.
Okay. So you two will be running, and then Mr. Redney.
He's
He's
unopposed.
unopposed.
Okay. So between Wyatt and Orr, we have to pick one, and between you two, we have to pick one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah.
And that's a perfect segue to our wrap-up. So we're asking each of you to do a 2-minute, here's why you vote for me. And we are starting with Mr. Wyatt.
Well, again, I appreciate the opportunity to come out here. I respect any individual that offers to run for public office. I've been working with people, I've been in an appointed office now for 4 decades. It has its rewards, but it also absolutely has its sacrifices. County commissioners become basically a full-time job. You have to absolutely dedicate yourself to looking at things from every angle. And you have to open yourself to ideas that are new and to do the research to find the best solutions. I can't sit here and tell you I can solve your problems. I'm not the person that's going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm not saying any of these other people are, but I'm telling you. I'll tell you the truth. I'll tell you what I think. I'll tell you what I know. Those aren't necessarily the same thing. But in 4 decades, frankly, I've got a lot of knowledge. I know how to get things done. I've got a track record of doing things done. And I care about this community. I wasn't born here, I was adopted. But I'll remind you that Moses was born in the land of Goshen, in Egypt. And the Lord chose Moses to lead his people. I thought that was pretty good. I was actually reading that this week, and I thought, hey, I should share that with the people of Etowah. And I'll be glad to share other biblical perspectives with you later. But we live in the greatest place in the country. We've already won the lottery. We were born in the USA. And we owe it to help each other. And my faith tells me I'm called to serve. If you choose me, I'll do my best.
Thank you. Ms. McCall.
Okay. Well, like I said, I'm in my 8th year as a commissioner, and I survived. It is a lot of hard work. It's not